All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our live webinar masterclass session today. It's on the metrics every digital minded executive needs to know. So, thanks everyone for joining. We're actually going to kick off about 5 minutes past the hour. So, just enough time to grab a cup of coffee, turn off all your notifications, and we'll be kicking off in just a few minutes. So, thanks those that have joined so far. All right, we'll be kicking off in just 1 minute. So, last couple of people to join. All right, so let's get started. Thanks everyone for joining us today. So we are going to do a masterclass on the metrics that every digital-minded executive needs to know. So first up, we'll introduce ourselves. My name is Chloe Nichols, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at Similarweb. And we have Pascal Cohen joining us today. So welcome, and thanks for joining us, Pascal.
Thanks for having me, Chloe. Nice to meet you all, and welcome to our great webinar. My name is Pascal. I'm the Director of Client Services in North America. I've been with Similarweb now over 5 years. And what I'm doing basically day to day is I'm helping our clients to extract the value of the platform and help them address their business pain points. And today we're going to show you some examples on how we do that and some recommendations from our side. So nice to be here. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you. So a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to start off with getting to know you. We'll also give a brief introduction to Similarweb, and then we'll get straight in there with those key drivers of any effective digital strategy, and then also the metrics to help measure your business success. So Pascal will also go through lots of examples using Similarweb and those KPIs that you need to measure. And then finally, we'll kick it off with a Q&A session towards the end. So we've definitely saved lots of time. We look forward to answering your questions. So to start off with, we've got a poll. We're just very keen to learn more about you and the industry you work in. So what industry do you currently work in? Is it e-commerce, finance, publisher, agency, consultancy, travel, or other?
Oh, I'm curious. Great. Let's see.
It's a lot in e-commerce. Excellent. Quite a few in other. Yes, we know it's a rather big bucket. So we've got financial, publishers, agencies as well, consultancies. Few more votes. Any other voters? A couple more coming in. Great. So if you're in the other, feel free to use the chat box just to sort of say what industry you currently work in. But it looks like the majority of you are in e-commerce space, which is definitely one of the industries we work with and we partner with, but we also work with publishers and agencies and consultancies and financial services firms.
Very cool.
Great. We definitely have some examples for you later as well that Pascal's going to show. Great. So we'll end that poll. And we have another question for you. We're curious to know what is your current job role or what you're working in at the moment. So again, in the chat box, just to get to know you, Pascal, shout out a couple of the different job titles that come up. So if you can share, that would be great.
Sure. All right, digital marketing specialist, lead data analyst, senior director of product, data analyst. I see a lot of BI roles here, which is great because we work a lot of BI analytics teams. So that's good you're here. Communication specialist. Wow, that's so fast.
They're flooding in.
Marketing analyst, head of SEO. Great. Digital marketing and analytics. Absolutely. We work with them a lot. Market analyst. Great. We're going to have some cool examples for you today.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Very nice.
Yeah, obviously, if we were in a room, we'd get everyone's hands up, but this is great. Just to learn a little bit more about you. And we also wanted to share a little bit about Similarweb and who we are. So if you're not familiar with Similarweb, we are the team, we are the Similarweb Research Intelligence, and we provide decision makers with a complete view of the fast changing digital world so they can set their digital strategy and grow their business. So a couple of fast facts about us. So we have 100 million websites and 4.7 million apps that you can analyze. We've got comparable company and market data, 190 countries, and within that, we've got a lot of data across all regions. We have global data, and it's live as well. It's updated and refreshed daily. And we also have this intuitive cutting edge pro platform. So we have our SaaS platform, but we also have our API integration as well. And not forgetting the actionable tools and custom reporting that we have available as well. So that's just a quick overview of who we are. But I'm sure if you have more questions for us at the end of the presentation, then we'd be very happy to answer any other thoughts that you have around Similarweb and who we are and what we do. But on to the main event. So in this first part, we're going to look at those key business drivers for any effective digital strategy. And then in the second half, Pascal will actually go and use the data points and align and give you guys examples of how to use these data points in your day-to-day workflow, especially when you're thinking about your KPIs, your metrics, and what you need to measure. So when planning your KPIs and your business strategy and your metrics, you need to really think about it in terms of your business model. So here are some examples. We've got transactional, ad monetization, and subscription. And then within these, we have different industries. So e-commerce, travel, financial services, insurance. Within ad monetization, we have publishers, ad tech, social platforms. And then finally, subscription, we have B2C and B2B SaaS platforms. And when you're really thinking about aligning your North Star KPIs, it really varies depending on your business model and your objectives. So for transactional, it's looking at those conversion rates and driving up those acquisition channels. For ad monetization, so your publishers and your social platforms, it's all around driving up those page views and increasing time on site. And then finally, with subscription, you're looking at your conversion rates and also your customer retention and also product usage because it's a reoccurring subscription business. So again, these are 3 examples, but we thought it would be a great way for you to think about, given that a lot of you are from the e-commerce industry, for example, on how to map them out in terms of your North Star KPIs. And then once you actually have your North Star KPIs aligned internally with your executive team, we wanted to introduce you to the 4 C's framework. So this is how we think about when we're working with our customers and how we align their business objectives and their goals and their KPIs. So we've got it in 4 different quadrants. So the company, so looking at your own company performance, but most importantly, how do you contextualize that and benchmark against the industry? So are you performing better or worse or on average with the industry itself? Then looking at competitors, you're looking into your competitive analysis, understanding what are your competitors doing? What can you learn from their digital strategy? And how can you use it to inform your own? Customers, it's looking at your own audience and then also looking for lookalike audiences. Which new audiences can you find that you can win back, potentially from your own competitors, but also finding partners and looking at your audience behaviors and consumer behaviors. And then finally, the category. So looking at market dynamics. So what's happening in your market, what are the trends happening over time, where should you actually potentially launch a new product or into a new region. So this is the 4 C's framework to sort of start thinking about how you would plot those North Star KPIs into your own digital strategy. And so when you're thinking about these key drivers, this is what we see as the 8 key drivers of any effective digital strategy. So you've got your business growth. So that's related to obviously revenue, but it can also be related to any other growth driver within your own business. Traffic acquisition, so looking at your acquisition strategies, whether it's to your website or to your own app, for example, or both, and increasing your digital market share, making sure that you're the market leader within your respective industry, looking at market expansion opportunities, market entry, market sizing, for example, audience reach, so looking at opportunities to increase your growth around your audience or your customer base. With consumer behavior, it's looking at understanding what's happening with different consumers across the region, so regionally, or even just looking at their consumer behavior, what they're looking at, where they hang out online, for example, what engages them online. Brand awareness, so looking at the strength of your own brand. And then finally, conversion rate. So again, that's very related to the business growth, but this is looking at conversion. So whether that's e-commerce and that's actually, increasing orders online, but it could also be related to conversion. So subscriptions, for example, or anything conversion related to your business. And so what we want to do now is thinking about aligning the 4 C's, so company, competitors, customers, and category. And how do you take those 8 key drivers? And I wanted to give you a bit of an example of how we see at Similarweb, how we plot it out with our customers. So first up, we have company. So it's looking at the business growth, the digital market share, conversion rate, for example. And with competitors, it's looking at that traffic acquisition, brand awareness, looking at the impact of your brand versus your competitors, and then again, conversion rate as well. So you're obviously looking at both. You can see that really depends on your business and how you align your 4 C's to the key drivers. But this is just to give you an example. For customers, it's again looking at that audience reach and that consumer behavior. And then finally, for category, we have increasing your digital market share and market expansion. So this is a bit of a framework that we find is really helpful for our customers when we're taking them through. And what we'll do for the rest of the masterclass is actually give you specific examples of how we use Similarweb and our data to actually bring these key drivers to life. So before we go into the examples, we have another poll. We would love to hear from you. What do you think is your leading C? So is it competitor analysis? Is it company? Is it customers? Is it category? Just to get a bit of an understanding of what you're thinking about at the moment. Oh, customers. So that's leading at the moment.
Interesting.
And obviously, this is just pick one. We sort of see it as in collaboration of all 4 C's and your KPIs. But we just wanted to get a bit of an understanding of those who are here today. It looks like it's customers. So that's really interesting. So it's looking at growing your customer acquisition, understanding your audience, what is the consumer behavior, and how that can drive your digital strategy.
Very cool. I would have also assumed that we see some, like we had some market analysts, that we saw some category level votes. Really interesting.
Great. So customers at the forefront there. Great.
50%. Wow.
Thank you.
That's great.
So on to the key drivers and actions. So I hope that you guys found that very helpful in terms of the framework and the key drivers. But in this second half, I'm going to pass it over to Pascal, and he's going to give some real detailed examples of how we use Similarweb to really map out your KPIs, especially for your digital strategy. Over to you,
Perfect.
Pascal.
Thank you, Chloe, and welcome everyone again to our webinar today. So Chloe already positioned the key drivers and some of these North Star KPIs that we see are very important for the specific industries or business models that we earlier described. What I'm going to do now in the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to show you some live examples and give you some ways on how we measure certain like these key drivers. Important to mention that I have worked across multiple industries, the e-commerce, publishers, agencies, travel, automotive. I've worked with so many clients across all really branches. And these are some of the examples that I want to show you and how our clients today use our data really to get a better idea of what is happening in the digital world. So Chloe, I think you need to go to the next slide and I'm gonna start. Here we go, perfect. Okay, so let's start with our first examples. Now, by the way, we wanted to get very fancy and animate this, but we figured in the end, not animation with a table is not so easy. So let's focus first on the first key drivers that I mentioned here: digital market share and distribution. This is one of the key questions we're getting across all industries, because we're answering questions such as, what is your share of voice within a specific market? How is your share of voice trending over time within the competitive landscape? Right? The other questions are very important also about distribution, and I will show you some examples afterwards. But this is one of very, very important key driver to really understand what has happened in your market, what is happening in your digital landscape, and how is it evolving over time? Because many industries, especially by the way, doing 2020 seasonality and constant same traffic share is something that is definitely always changing right now. And one of the major leading metrics, of course, that Similarweb can help you with is monthly visits. So we have a lot of clients today, and what I recommend also is you can really calculate your digital market share based on monthly visits. But you can see here that I mentioned on purpose that you can base it also on different other metrics. So you don't have to do it on monthly visits. I work with publishers that are doing and calculating the digital market share based on total page views. I have e-commerce clients that are doing exactly the same thing, but they're doing it on unbounced visits rather than on monthly visits. So within Similarweb, you will see, and if you already are familiar with the tool, you have different KPIs / metrics available that you can then gain really insights into what is your digital market share over time. Now, we also mapped here in the table the helpful hints, of course, which basically I explain and which C we think this key driver is part of. So of course, it falls into the company category, C, which makes sense because on a company level, you want to understand what is your share of voice, and at a category level, you want to understand what is going on in the industry. Now, very important key driver for BI analytic folks out there. So we've seen a lot of BI people out there in the webinar. So this is, for example, something that they're using in their recurring meetings or reports that they're creating internally for executives, for example. Very, very easy metrics to read, very simple to digest, very, very good for executives. So for all the BI analytics folks and also strategists out there from strategy teams, use this. This is something we can help you with. And I think that's something that gives more context to what is your position within the competitive landscape. The next one is digital performance. So digital performance is a very broad let's say term in this regard. But the metrics that we suggest here can be monthly visits, total monthly unique visitors also, or pages per visit. Digital performance is really important to understand really the quality of traffic that is landing on your website, right? You want to compare the bounce rate of your domain against your core competitors, for example, or publishers, for example, using uniques per device. Like this is a metric that we have available as well to measure customer loyalty, for example, right? And how their digital entities are performing over time. So digital performance is definitely one of the major key drivers as well. BI analytics teams love, of course, monitoring these these KPIs and these metrics. But we see across the board, across all industries, this is really, really important to measure, really to compare engagement metrics, again, such as average visits duration, bounce rate, uniques over time, and so on. So this is a very, very important component of how we can help you. The third part, traffic acquisition strategy. Now, this is, I guess, all the online marketing people online here on the webinar, they probably will like, oh yeah, this is definitely what I'm doing. And this is exactly what we can help you with also. So traffic acquisition is all about what is the online marketing strategy of your competitors. And it is not just important, and I will mention this a couple of times during our webinar today, not just it's important to compare yourself against your competitors. It's also important to benchmark your channel strategy against the industry benchmark. Yeah, you want to understand if you're over or under indexing. I will show you some examples here as well. But it's about revealing the online marketing strategy. Are they investing more in PPC? Are they investing more in display ads? Are they relying more on SEO? And so on. But I'll give you an example in a minute. And last on the slide, market and business growth. Now, at the end of the day, this is a super important key driver, because once you understand your share of voice, you need to understand how is the market performing over time. For example, is the travel market right now recovering after COVID? Or what is happening with the home lending industry, for example, worldwide? Do we see an increase in traffic to an industry, or do we see a decrease in traffic? Very important, because you need to always contextualize your performance, because you know your own data, but you don't know how you're performing against the rest of the world. And this is really important. So market and business growth is super, super important to monitor over time and to see that, do you want to expand to a certain market or not? And with that being said, I don't want to show too much text, of course. I want to also show you some live examples. So Chloe, if you can click to the next slide, that would be great. And then we go one by one. Okay, so here's the first example of digital market share. Remember when I earlier said and talked about digital market share, you need to contextualize your performance. Look at this example and look at the beautiful insight here. So we have here, and I think we have somebody actually in the from a pet that owns a pet store here on the webinar. We took here some of the pet food providers in the United States, and we created this custom category. And from a traffic perspective, we looked literally over here 18 months almost on traffic. And we see here, very interestingly, the shift in share of voice within the competitive landscape. Right? This is something that today BI analytics personas are using on a weekly or monthly base, using Similarweb to report these to the executives or to upper management. So you can see, very interesting, that Petco, while in January 2019 was about 17%, during COVID lockdown, they managed actually to increase their share of voice by almost 21%. Hill's Pet, for example, more than doubled their share of voice when looking at these two timeframes. So you can see which players, how are they performing, how are you performing, and especially during very turbulent times, understanding how's the market behaving. And you can see that any other player is actually losing traffic while Hill's Pet and Petco gain traffic. So this is an example of market share. Next slide, please. Now, this is a very interesting one. I would like to hear your opinions as well. So you chose here two different industries. So on the left side, you have the e-commerce category in the US. So this is really some of the websites that we categorize as e-commerce in Similarweb. And then on the right side, you have insurance providers category. So again, some of these insurance providers, are offering more or less the same. Some are just offering car insurance, but you get the idea. You have two different industries here. Now, we talked earlier about digital market distribution. So I would like to ask you, and please feel free to give your answer in the chat. What do you think is the major differences between the left and the right category? Any suggestions? Feel free to just bombard the chat if you have any suggestion. What do you think are the main differences here?
It's like a game of spot the difference.
Spot the difference, yeah. Product, of course, yes, absolutely. But when you look at this, number of domains, yes. I mean, both have number of domains, one have like more, but when you look just of the top 10, look at the traffic share. Exactly. There we have Peter Newton. Thank you. That's a yes, exactly. Now all the answers coming. I was a little bit more. I needed to give a little bit more direction
Hint.
because I think I didn't explain that so good well. But that's exactly the point. Traffic distribution. This is something that actually I think I'm explaining a lot of our clients to do much more. Is, for example, if you're a market strategist and your company wants to penetrate a specific market, it could be in a different market in a different region, but it could be also just maybe a different product, right? A different market in terms of this product. And you can see on the left side how Amazon, of course, is capturing the vast majority of traffic within the competitive landscape. And by the way, I did this also. You can see if I would have done this only among the top 10, Amazon's share of voice would be even much higher. It would be over 40%. I did this. So on the right side, you can see that the market the category is much more fragmented. And this is exactly what I wanted to show you. The idea, the key driver, or one of the insights that is super important is understanding the fragmentation of the market, because this will drive your strategy, right? If I want to go into a market, I want to see if the competition is spread across all providers, or if there are 1-2 players that are dominating the market, and my marketing efforts that I need to put in going to be really it's going to be really difficult for me to penetrate the market and gain visibility and traffic share. So understanding the distribution, so it's not just looking at ranking, it's also understanding how the market it looks like, and that gives you maybe more idea about consumer loyalty and so on. Well, Amazon here, of course, is crushing everyone, and that means something for itself. Okay, that's one example. Next example. Perfect. So here we talked about online marketing strategy. And remember, in the beginning, I talked about traffic acquisition strategy. So that's basically the same thing. So here's a great example on how to do that and why. First of all, you need to contextualize your strategy, your channel strategy with your core competitors. And you can see here, I used here the airline sector. And you can see here, I put here Southwest, United, AA, JetBlue, and Delta. So I compare them next to each other. So each, domain has their own color. But what on purpose did also, and that's why I framed it in red, I compare it and contextualize it against the industry as well. Because again, it is super important. And that's what sometimes I try to always to remind our clients and our users, contextualize against the industry as well. Because your core competitors might do horribly, and you think you're doing well, but maybe the industry is doing actually better and you need to still catch up. So here you can see very interestingly that actually JetBlue, when we're looking at this, by the way, this is of the last 3 months, the top graph, is investing in paid search much more than their competitors, and is actually over-indexing against the industry. So this is how you use this metric, right? Traffic acquisition strategy, high level, understanding really what is the marketing strategy, and then compare it against each other in terms of traffic share. And below, what is really interesting is when you then deep dive into the strategy, it was really interesting to see how this traffic is evolving. So for example, you can see here, I marked in red, specifically when the pandemic started in the United States, you can see here certain players that continue to invest in PPC. And for example, we see that Delta actually used to be the #1 driver before. In January 2020, you see Delta generated almost 700,000 visits in PPC, and then declined it a lot, I guess, due to the pandemic, of course, but now reinvesting. So this spike between August and September, right, the spike where Delta takes over JetBlue is super interesting for our users, because they see, okay, their marketing strategy is recovering, maybe they're reinvesting. What should we do? Should we reinvest? And so on and so on. So it creates a lot of conversations and strategic thinking on what you as a company should do. Next slide, please. All right, perfect. So this is another example. Remember, we talked about one of the key drivers is business growth that Chloe mentioned earlier. I mentioned market and business growth as well as one of our key drivers, and this is another example on how to do that. Yeah, you can see I chose here 2 categories as well. You can do this in Similarweb. You can customize your own category as well. And I created the mattress category in the US. And then I created a very easy year-over-year view. And this view allows me to understand what is happening within the market. It helps me first of all to understand that the market of the mattress category in the US grow 30% year over year. So this is super important, especially again for BI analytics folks and research personas out there, right? They need to understand how the industry is performing. And this is number you, for example, will always follow you when you when you do your internal reporting, right? You can report internally, be like, okay, our company grew by 50% year over year, while the industry only by 30%. This is an important message to the business and an important insight that you need to share internally, right? On the right side, you can see also other industries, unfortunately, that are declining. So for example, the car rental category in Germany is declining, right? By almost 35% year over year. Of course, we know the reason why, but it's interesting to understand, right? So understanding market growth and market decline is super, super important. Think about it. Traditionally, this would have taken you sometimes weeks to understand by using a conventional old school market research, but here it's really in a matter of seconds you get these insights. On another, you can see the headline. I'm tag this as market growth, but I also tagged it as, I created a completely new term here, total addressable digital market. So to all the strategists on this webinar, when you want to penetrate a market, or when you analyze a market, or you're doing research or strategize about specific, sectors you want to get involved, it is super important to understand what is the overall total addressable digital market, right? Is it 500,000 visits? Or is it maybe 150 million visits, right? And then you can create out of this total addressable market insights, you can create ROI models in terms of, okay, we going to a market, the market is 800 million visits, that's the potential we can reach. Right now we have 20 million. Maybe we can, you can basically calculate the potential ROI model based on the potential market size, which we can help you show here. So you can really get two insights in one view, which is growth and market size. Let's move on to the next one to give you some other examples. So there are more, of course, right? I just showed you the TAM one, the total addressable market. And of course, you don't have to do it only on total visits. You can do it only on page views and other metrics. Another one is funnel efficiency and conversion trend. Chloe mentioned it earlier, right? Especially within the transactional field. We have funnel analysis, insights, conversion trends. You want to always understand if the efficiency of a funnel is improving or actually stagnating, maybe, or maybe declining, right? It's also very important to understand how do you compare against your competitors. It's always really about contextualizing. Like when I say contextualizing across all these key drivers, it's very important to do that. We have brand and search reach, which is super, super powerful as well, right? You can understand with direct traffic or organic search traffic or branded search share, how is your brand performing against other brands? So for example, I'm going to show you an example about this in a second, but this is super, super important because, brand awareness in nowadays time is a super important KPI and key driver to measure. And this is something you can measure with Similarweb as well. And this is what our clients doing as well. I'm doing this a lot, by the way. Brand and search reach is a lot with marketing people that are, VP of marketings or senior leaders in the organization that would like to understand if how our brand awareness is changing over time while we are launching, campaigns in the same time. And then we have consumer behavior, and that's super important as well. We have a lot of folks here on the webinar that said that they are more on a consumer level, right? From a C perspective when we ask you. So cross-browsing behavior is a super, super, super powerful key driver to monitor. Within Similarweb, we call it audience interest. And what you can do basically is you can follow the digital journey of your target audience to really better understand where are they cross-browsing, right? And optimize your user acquisition strategy accordingly. I always try to give the example, think about it that way. If you would be in a big shopping mall and the shopping mall has 1,000 stores and it's a maze, but you are able to see where your clients are going, to which stores are they going, which other stores are they visiting, which other stores that are similar to your store are visiting. And based on where they're going, you can then place commercials and try to drive them to your store. This is kind of the same idea here, right? We can show you cross-browsing behavior, and that can help you to really target your audience better, maybe with display ad campaigns. So cross-browsing behavior is a super, super important key driver and KPI that that our consumer insights analysts are using a lot, like as when I relate this to who is using this, and of course user acquisition personas that want to understand, okay, how can I drive more MQLs, SQLs, right, to our brand, and by addressing and targeting our consumers much more efficient. On the last part is consumer behavior in general. Like, there is not just consumer behavior in terms of cross-browsing behavior, it is consumer behavior in terms of consumer demand, right? So you can search what we use, or what I recommend is using search volume, search visits, and search traffic trends of keywords as a way on how consumers are searching, or what are they searching, right? And we'll show you an example in a second, but search volume makes sense, right? If of a certain, let's say, consumers are right now searching for a gaming console because Xbox, for example, and PlayStation, Sony came out, and you can see, then you can measure basically, you build keyword groups and can measure which product group is getting more volume and search volume. So there's maybe more demand for a specific product. So you can see, oh, consumers are actually want or searching more for a specific product line. You can monitor the trend over time and the traffic distribution. What I mean by that is searches in general are sometimes branded and sometimes they're generic. And sometimes they show intent on less, or in terms of, like, let's say you're buying a car, and sometimes you can just write buy car, or sometimes you can buy, I want to buy our BMW, right? It's a much more specific search, and you can slice and dice search terms in a way to create user intent and to reflect consumer behavior and consumer demand. So let me dive into the examples. If you can click here, perfect. So here we talked about, I talked earlier, I mentioned funnel efficiency and funnel and conversion trend. So here I took an example, for example, the home improvement category in the United States. And you can see here, I chose conversion rate. So this is super important. Contextualizing your performance. If you know your own conversion rates, you know how you're doing, but you don't know how you're doing against the industry and against your core competitors. You can see here, even in gray, you can be able here to show the group average, and you can see here who's trending and who's not trending. You can see everybody had like an uplift. That's also very interesting, right? You need to understand if in this world, for example, during COVID, that some of these players managed to actually improve the efficiency in how they convert their traffic, right? And of course, you need to contextualize also with traffic, right? Because traffic can increase, but your conversion rate maintains. This is something you want to discuss maybe internally and see how can you actually monetize more of the incoming traffic, and not just be maintaining the same trend in terms of conversion. Next slide. Okay, here another interesting I wanted to show you. This is I didn't put here the name of the brand I'm analyzing, but we talked about brand reach and awareness. Now the top graph with the 4.9 or 5 million is from January 2019 to September 2019, and down 17 million is January 2020 to September 2020. So it's year over year. Okay, you can see it on the right side. That's the time frames. So the orange is the top and the blue is the bottom. So guess which brand is it? That's Peloton. Okay, and here you can see an increasing insights on how you use Similarweb, and especially these metrics, right, to understand brand reach. Last year, almost 40% of the traffic came from direct, and direct traffic, as I said earlier, is an indicator of brand reach and brand awareness. This year, their direct traffic is 50%. Almost every second visit is coming from direct. That means that if I'm looking at that and understand, my brand reach or brand awareness became much more stronger, right? I don't need to rely anymore so much on paid search or paid channels, such as paid search and displays. I can reduce them because everything coming more organically and my brand becoming stronger, right? So you can see even here from a direct perspective, they had like less than 2.5 million visits last year, and now there are about 8.5 million visits. So this is a huge spike, but it's also a great way as using this as a proxy to understand brand recognition and brand reach of your entity. Next example. And this is the last example I want to show today. Again, there are multiple and so many examples that we can show you. But here, for example, we talked about consumer behavior, consumer demand. So I created here a custom keyword group with home lending related keywords. So let's mortgages and mortgage calculator and so on. And you can see here the trend of this search group, right? Of these terms over time. And while we see in March a huge spike in the US market. There can be multiple reasons for that. We know, of course, the pandemic started, and a lot of people, unfortunately, had some issues in work, and people got furloughed. So people were like kind of more worried about what's happening, and maybe some people wanted to sell their houses. But on the other hand, we know also that mortgage interest rates decreased significantly during in the last 6-7 months, and that's why maybe people saw this as an opportunity actually to purchase houses or apartments. And then you can see that the two arrows is showing you, giving you the insight, right? We have a spike, and since after March, the spike or the overall traffic share is relatively higher than the average in the previous month before. Right? If you look here, it was around 20% and spiking 30. There's certainly seasonality behind it. But since the pandemic and afterwards, the average is much higher than it was in the previous month before in 2019. And that reflects consumer demand. If you understand, if you create keyword groups that are tied to specific product line, that are tied to specific brand names, and you trend out the search behavior over time, you get an idea on how consumers are searching and what consumers are asking for. And based on that, you can then influence your user acquisition strategy, and you can influence your content strategy, right? You can analyze and improve maybe your campaign strategy. There's so many ideas you can do that, but it's about understanding consumer behavior and consumer demand. And with that being said, that was my last example. I'm talking a lot, and I hope it was informative. But I have a last question, of course. And the last questions that we want to ask you is, what is your focus or biggest challenge for 2021 planning? So please share within the chat and let us know what your biggest challenges are, because we would like to hear.
Yes, please. Hopefully that will fire up. Thank you so much, Pascal. We have just a couple more slides to share with you during this session. I'm aware that we would love to open it up for Q&A, so I'll whiz through them. Have there been any answers to this question, or are you guys still thinking about your planning at the moment? Any answers to this one?
I muted myself by mistake. Now, so COVID-19, we have building web presence, increased reach and brand awareness. So I'm happy we covered this also. Build the best method to increase traffic and traffic share. Interesting. Budget, obviously. Thinking about always on strategy. Interesting. Now, absolutely, like I think that we're all in the same boat and that we're facing the same challenges. And the good part is that you can see that we can help you address these challenges. And we hope that it also helps you to understand how you internally can better understand how to monitor what is going on.
Yes.
Evaluating weaknesses and increase performance, new customer acquisition also, increase loyal audience. Interesting.
Yeah, a lot was around customers as well.
Yeah.
So just to recap how we can help you, and hopefully a lot of those examples that Pascal gave today has really helped you bring those key drivers and those KPIs to life. But we can really help you with those 4 C's. So we've got company research, so we can help you analyze your company's digital performance against the market and the industry, especially around those benchmarks that Pascal talked about. We can also obviously help with competitive analysis. So you can deep dive into any of your competitors' digital performance and uncover their digital strategy. We can help you with category analysis and understanding you and your position in the industry and what those market trends are. So looking at who's winning, losing market share, definitely looking at seasonality and trends over time. And then finally, customers. So we can definitely help you grow your audience acquisition strategies, improve the retention, and increase conversion rates. So we also have our conversion analysis and funnel analysis uh, uh, additional feature, I guess we said, and that was one of the examples. So we can really help you through that entire plotting out the digital strategy. So if you're interested in hearing more, then please do get in touch. Tell the team, if you're not an existing customer, get in touch with your account manager. Obviously, if you're existing, if you're not, jump to our website, let them know that Pascal and Chloe sent you. We would love to hear more about you and your challenges, and give you a more of a personalized demo as well, based on the key drivers and the metrics we went through today. So just a quick summary, a recap. So we went through those key drivers. We also talked about those important strategic questions, and then really to align your KPIs to the 4Cs framework. And we did it. So we do have about 10 minutes, I think, yes, of Q&A time. So I think there's been a few questions already in the Q&A box or even the chat. So yes, please do ask away. Any burning questions? We hope that was helpful, though. We got any in the chat box?
We have a question here in the chat box. I see here somebody's asking, this isn't marketing related, but I'm curious whether you have any guidance on how Similarweb could be used to analyze digital comms for elections. Good question. It's actually interesting because I did actually a big analysis on the US elections with Similarweb data recently, and we're currently updating this also frequently. And there are certain different ways. I would like to hear more, I guess, what you mean exactly by digital comms and how you define that, because then I can help you and understand, like, give you like a metric that could be helpful to measure and analyze it. I don't know if it's easy to just type it in. But there are different ways. If it's about, if it's about e-commerce, if it's about, here we go. Okay, I see somebody just uploaded the report that we did for about the elections. Yeah, so we can definitely use Similarweb if it comes from communication strategies for elections. We see where the traffic is coming from, if certain candidates are gaining traffic from specific channels. So we saw, for example, when I did an analysis 6 months ago, that Donald Trump was relying a lot of display ad strategy versus Andrew Yang and Joe Biden were relying heavily more on organic. So yeah, actually, okay, analyzing how the candidates are doing on social media and how they are driving traffic. Yes, perfect. Okay, yeah. So it's not really, we're not really seeing what is happening on social media. So I cannot tell you really how their Twitter is performing or the Instagram and so on a social media network. But overall, we can show you what keywords are they generating towards their websites. Are they more merchandise oriented? Are they relying more on display ad strategy versus SEO strategy and so on? So it's less about social, but it's more about in overall, what is their marketing strategy and how are they trying to bring people to their website?
Great, thanks, Pascal. Any other burning questions out there? I can't quite see the chat box or the Q&A box, so I don't know. Can you see them, Pascal? We got a few. No more questions? Now is your chance to pick Pascal's brain. He's worked with many different customers, and I think Pascal, you brought up a great point when we're looking at those challenges, and we are looking at a very uncertain world at the moment. And I think being able to use data to back up your strategic decision making is really where there are a lot of opportunities to be able to slice and dice the metrics from Similarweb. So if you do have a question, now is your time. Otherwise, we're very happy to sort of wrap up a little bit earlier.
We got here actually another question. I constantly get the question, how reliable is competitor traffic and conversion data? Can you help answer that question? Well, it's more, I guess the question is more than about how it's more about how reliable the insight is that you're showing, rather than how reliable it is. I think it's very important to compare yourself against your competitors, and not from a traffic and conversion perspective, right? It's all about, I mentioned it earlier, contextuals. And so the value in, I think the value of comparing yourself against your competitors for any metric, this is important. It's indisputable in my opinion. It's really important to contextualize how reliable is whatever you have available to you. It depends. I can tell you that I've worked with Similarweb. Again, I'm not. I'm more working with. I'm more working with the clients from a consultative engagement. The overall, I would say that depends on what you have, what you're using. But when I use Similarweb, our clients are very much relying on our in our data and trusting the data, because it is aligning what they see in the industry. It's aligning with the trends that they're seeing directionally, of course. So I answer this question twofold. So I have very lot of confidence in what our capabilities and what we're showing. And the other part is, it is super important to always contextualize your performance against your competitors and the rest of the industry. I guess I'm looking for more questions. Here we go. Okay, so there's a question. I'm in the e-com industry competing against online stores. So how Similarweb can help me to find my competition, and what metrics can I look for? Yeah. Great question. It is, there are certain ways you can do this in Similarweb. One way is you can type in a keyword that you are competing with, or let's say a product. Let's say you sell TVs. A TV. So you would type in, you create a keyword group of TV related searches, like I want to buy a TV, televisions, cheap televisions, whatever it is. And you can upload them to Similarweb, and Similarweb will spit out a list of domains within your market that are receiving traffic for the same keywords that you are receiving. So first of all, that is very important, because then from a top of the funnel perspective, I can compare with who I'm competing with, because sometimes you know some competitors, but you don't know all of them. So this is definitely one aspect on how you can do this. You can do it by keywords. So which keywords and which domains are getting traffic for what kind of keywords. So you would use your own keywords. Another way would be, remember I mentioned it earlier, would be audience interest, what we call a very important metric that is reflecting consumer behavior and cross-browsing behavior. So you would analyze your website, you would put your website into Similarweb, and then you would probably go to audience interest and see the cross-browsing behavior of your target audience. And then you can basically follow, in quotes, which is not really true, but you basically see which other domains are they cross-browsing to, and then maybe you can find some of these domains might be actually competitors you never heard before, right? So I would do this definitely through keywords and through audience cross-browsing behavior, and you can definitely get a better list and better understanding who your competitors are. And then you're asking, what metrics can I look for? Well, the overlap metrics. We actually give you a percentage of overlap between your domain and your competitor's domain. And if this overlap is increasing or decreasing, is very important to monitor, right? That's another key driver in terms of monitoring audience behavior. And I personally call it the threat analysis. So because of course, if the overlap with your competitors is decreasing, they're less of a threat to you. But if it's increasing over time, they're becoming more of a threat to you. And that can cause cannibalization in terms of, conversions are shifting to your core competitors. So I hope that answered that question.
Great. Yeah, I think we have time for one more if there's a burning one out there.
There's one last one, yeah. When comparing ourselves to a competitor media on Similarweb, there have been cases where Similarweb had no data for the competitor. Does it mean the figures are too small to be shown? Yes. We are able really to analyze over 100 million websites, but if the website is too small, we usually show NA. In most cases, we show like a figure less than 5,000 visits. But if the website is too small, then we have just no data available, because there's not significant, data behind making us comfortable giving any data out there, because it's just too small. But the interesting part is that that's an insight itself, right? Now, you might not be able to deep dive into the analytics and the metrics that you want to monitor, right? And you want to understand about your competitor, but just showing you that the competitor is so tiny that we even not show anything is an insight itself, and hopefully should calm you a little bit, because that doesn't mean really that there are probably any threat to you from a digital perspective.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much, Pascal. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us and your experience as well in utilizing our different data points to be able to align them with KPIs and business goals. We hope that this session was very helpful. I would welcome any feedback, whether it's by email, you can contact us, or even just letting us know in the chat box now if you enjoyed the content, and if it's given you a bit of food for thought. I definitely learned a few things on this masterclass myself, so it was a great way to share a little bit more about us and how we can help you. Please do check us out after this. If you would like to know a bit more about a bit of a personalized demo, get in touch. But for now, thank you very much for joining. Thanks again, Pascal.
Thanks everyone for joining, and have a great rest of the week.
Yes.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Chloe.